Are you looking for a way to scale your short-term rental business and buy more properties? Well, co-hosting might be the right fit for you. Welcome to the Co-Host Coach podcast with Joe Roney. This episode of the Co-Host Coach is brought to you by Savvy STR Agents. If you're looking to buy a short-term rental, then contact the STR Savvy Agent team at savvy.realty.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Co-Host Coach. I am Joe Roney, and I am honored to have Michael Dinwiddie here today, who I have known for a couple of years, and he is rocking it in the short-term rental space. So, Michael, welcome.
Joe, thank you. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, so I always like to talk about how I met people, and you were another person that I met through the Accelerator program, although I think I was in the first one and you were in the second one with Bill Faith. But you know, what got you into that Accelerator program?
Yeah, what got me into the Accelerator program was like just a desire to make short-term rentals my full-time thing. And I had been learning a lot through having my first short-term rental for about a year at that point, but I really wanted to grow and have more of my own properties and wanted to start co-hosting. And I just felt like I needed like a deeper level of understanding and knowledge to get that.
And so your first short-term rental that you purchased, what location are you in?
Yeah, so I live in Washington. I'm about an hour south of Seattle. And my first rental's in the Olympic National Park area. And my wife and I had been looking at buying our own home. And then I had also been interested in getting into short-term rentals because several years before that, we were in Loch Ness in Scotland, just on a trip. And we were staying at this guy's Airbnb. And in Europe, at least in the places we stayed at, they do it like more like traditional bed and breakfast. So my favorite part was that this guy gave us a menu the night before and like asked us what we wanted for breakfast, and we checked it off. And then in the morning, he and his wife made breakfast for us. And it was just so cool. And I remember thinking back at that time, I want to retire early. I want to live somewhere really cool. I want to host people from around the world and just give them an awesome experience. And like, I remember that day vividly. It's probably because I also jumped into water, which is icy cold year round, if you know anything about Loch Ness. So that was just a really cool experience. And then in 2020, my older brother bought a couple short-term rentals in Florida on the Gulf Coast and did amazing. Obviously, the rental market was crazy during that time. And so he did amazing. So it was like, oh, this is something I could do. Like, we don't even own our own home yet, but I could get into short-term rentals. And so I started pivoting and looking, how can we use this money that we have to instead buy investment property? And did a whole bunch of analysis and ended up deciding that Olympic National Park and the city of Forks, which is actually like the where Twilight is based out of, would be an amazing market. And so we bought a home there in November 2022 when everyone was terrified of an impending recession. Interest rates had just spiked, and so no one was buying. And so we were able to go in with a super low ball offer and get an incredible property, which has been an incredible accelerator for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty awesome. Like I said, we jumped in pretty close to the same time, and did it differently. But that's what I love about this space is there's so many different ways to jump into this, and whether it be co-hosting or arbitrage or buying your first short-term rental, which to buy your first short-term rental before you own your own home, there's not a lot of people out there doing that. But your life has completely changed in the past 24 months since then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because of that, I just realized how much I really love like setting up and managing these properties and giving guests really cool experiences. So within a few months of doing that, I wanted to do this full time. I wanted to be a co-host. I wanted to be a property manager. I wanted more of my own properties. So I then started the journey of how do I really do that? And that's where you and I met, because I heard about Bill Faith's Accelerator program, and before jumping in and spending like $6,000, whatever it was on that, I actually just got the impression, I should call someone who did that program and who had success. And so that was when you and I first met. I called you out of the blue, I think, and I said, hey, was this helpful for you? And you obviously learned a lot from that program, and so I decided to jump in and join that as well.
It was. I tell people to this day, I had never paid for training, like paid for, it's one thing to pay for college or whatever, but to pay to better yourself in there, especially when it's 6,000 plus dollars. I'd never done that before. And it was like, am I really spending money where it needs to be? And I guarantee I've made that money back tenfold, 10 times quicker because of that 12-week program at that time, which I think was turned into 8 weeks later. But and I think you've seen the same results from it.
Yeah, and that program was great. I actually see it kind of like a college education. It was almost like taking a semester's worth of a graduate degree in short-term rentals. You had all these professors who were teaching you, and it was a cool experience. It was different though from more of like direct coaching and accountability. I personally didn't get as much of that out of the program,
Yep.
which is why later on, like you and I like started meeting more closely and like started we had our own little mastermind going, and then later on I even joined another mastermind to get more direct coaching, and but just having that education gives you confidence and gives you the skills and the confidence you need to go after more, which is probably my favorite thing about these types of programs.
Yeah, I mean, it to me, it's hitting the easy button, right? You're hitting the easy button to fast forward. And I work with a lot of investors, and I've helped a few recently close on their first ones, and they haven't done an accelerator program, and I help every one of them learn as much as they can. But there's a huge difference and a huge learning curve if you haven't jumped in and listened to all the podcasts and read the books and understand this space, because the space has changed even since you jumped in 2 years ago in your markets. How have you seen the short-term rental space change? Has it gotten a lot more competitive?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's gotten more competitive, but if you if you listen to the right people and like you approach this seriously as like a business owner, I don't feel like it's, I personally don't feel like it's harder today, um, because the properties I work with and my own properties, I'm always trying to level them up and make them just the best that they can be. And now I've got like great 5-star reviews on my properties, and all that just like is a snowball effect for being successful in these markets. And honestly, you just have to start. Like if I look back at my first property, there were, dozens of other properties kind of similar to it when I launched. And now there's probably been it's not a big market, but there's probably a dozen new properties since I've launched. Um, but my property still stands out because of some of the amenities that I put in and some of the experience that I put into that first property.
Yeah, yeah. So about a year, I guess it was about a year and a half ago now, when we started our weekly calls. It was the summer of 23, and it was you and Philip and Zach and Austin, a few others, that we started jumping on weekly calls just to jump into this space. And I loved it because we would just get on weekly or biweekly calls just to kind of help each other learn. And at that time, I think in our total group, we had a total of 2 co-hosting properties out of the 9 of us. And with where we are today and what you have coming on board soon, we're going to be well over 60, which is pretty awesome. But when did you get your first co-hosting property? I know it was in the last year, but when did you actually start co-hosting?
Yeah, it took me a while. So I remember distinctly forming my LLC while my wife was, we had just had our third kid. And so I had a few months off of my work. And so I started the business, and I like got really excited. It was like trying to learn everything I could from you guys. And it took me like 5 or 6 months before I got my first client. Um, and I think so much of that was just lack of confidence and lack of experience, and this desire to like hit a home run in my first client and have like this amazing property. Uh, and it was really once I started talking with you all more, and especially Austin, one of the people in the group, he was just like, just get something. You just need something to learn from it to get that experience. And so I remember talking to my first client, who's no longer even one of my clients, because going into it, I knew, and I told my wife, I was like, this isn't the type of client I want to have, but I just need something. I just need to start so I can start learning those skills and those processes and start implementing it. So I actually got my first and my second client on the same day, it's funny how that happens, and there's a reason for it. But I got them both on the same day was when I kind of closed both of those co-hosting contracts. And one of them was not great. She was previously a self-manager, and she wanted to still control so many things, and she was pretty old school with how she approached things. Like, she called every individual guest before they came to answer their questions, which is super high touch, but super not sustainable. And
Yeah.
guests don't even really like that. So yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So you jumped into two properties, and obviously going from 0 to 2 was similar to the way I did it as well. Like it really launches you. But I think the key data point here for the listeners out there is if you're jumping into this co-hosting space, some people get that first property in the first 30 days, and sometimes it's going to take a little bit longer, and that's okay. You're building a business here, and but once you got those first two properties, then it started to kind of go into place, right?
Yeah, around that same time, I joined a different mastermind as well, and it was like one of those very expensive ones. And um, it took a lot of thought to decide whether to jump into that. I think I ended up spending like $8,000 at first for like 4 months of access to that program, and then ended up spending maybe 10 more thousand later on in the year to like continue with that coaching program. And the reason why I did it was I wanted that easy button. And I think more like looking back at it, and the biggest value I've got out of it is like a vote of confidence for myself. Like, I basically told myself my desires, my goals to do this full time are so strong that I'm willing to put down this type of money so I can learn from the best, and
Yep.
so that I can have all of the tools and resources that I need to succeed. And I just set my vision so hard on this is what I want to do full time within the next year, that was kind of easy money to spend to get there, which is kind of crazy looking back. Like, I can say honestly to a client now if I want to, and I haven't needed to, but I could say I've invested $25,000 in learning from the best in this industry in the last 18 months because
Yep.
I want to be the best, co-host that I can be. And just having that inside of me and being able to say that if I need to just gives me confidence to succeed and to be able to bring on big clients that I want to grow my business.
Yeah, and we've talked about that before. I mean, you're just at the very beginning stages of completely blowing up in what you were doing, and I agree. When you spend money to become the best, now you're an industry expert, right? You're able to exceed not every property manager near you's numbers. You're able to help these owners make more money, and in turn, it's going to help you make more money, and it's a win-win for everyone. And there's so many people that want to jump into this space that I like to call keyboard warriors, right? I think there are a lot of co-hosts that get a bad name because there's a lot of people that say, "Oh yeah, I can co-host your property, but I'm never going to visit it. I'm never going to actually be there. I'm just going to talk to the guests." And you have jumped in with the more hands-on approach to be there and be at these properties and be an expert in the area, and I think that's huge. All your properties, how far away are your properties from where you live?
Yeah, so I've got two markets that I have properties in right now. One is Olympic National Park, Forks area, and that's like 3.5, 4 hours away. So drivable, but not easy. Like, it's hard to go out there on a day trip. Um, and then my other market is just here near me, so Southeast King County, Washington, where there's some beautiful lakes and some more rural areas, and so I also work in that area. And then I have two other markets, which I guess three other markets where I'm growing into. Another one on the coast, one here in the mountains nearby, are both about 2 hours away. And then my latest property is in another coastal town here in Washington.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So obviously you're growing your co-host business. How many properties do you think will you be at come January, and what are your 2025 goals on where your business is heading?
Yeah. Honestly, I'll answer your question indirectly. The biggest impact on my 2024 growth has been like visualizing and seeing what I want to achieve. And so around that time, probably back in February and March, when I got those first co-hosting clients, I had started writing down my annual goal and putting it in a card in my pocket. I actually have my old goal card, and it was like a laminated, like fancy piece of paper that had my goal, which was just to replace my W-2 income. And it had my reasons why I wanted to do that, which was so I could go on field trips with my 6-year-old, so that I could build the business that I keep dreaming about and like waking up early excited about. So I have time to actually do that. And the third is so that I didn't have to like have the stresses of a W-2, like the worries about being let go, the worries about reporting into my manager about going on PTO or, whatever thing like that. So I had that goal card, and just like every day I would feel it in my pocket, or I'd put it in my pocket and I'd touch it, and I would just like start thinking like very specific number that I want to achieve to get out of my W-2. And as soon as that was just like in my head every second of the day, I was able to start like making the choices subconsciously to get there.
Yep.
And so like one of those decisions was to sign up for a random app, which I don't even really use anymore. I don't even know what it was called. But out of that, a random lady in like a local networking group here reached out to me and invited me to a local networking group, which I'd never done before. So I showed up there and like started to meet people. And one of the people I met was a commercial lender. And so I set up a call with her to walk her through my business model and to tell her all the stuff that I was excited about. And she was impressed. And so she was like, I've got a few people that I should connect you with. And she's been awesome. So she connected me with this guy who was around my age, like a young investor who had a few short-term rentals. And he also had this 14-unit boutique hotel that he had recently bought. And he started telling me the numbers about that. And I was like trying to keep up, but I had no idea what he was talking about. This was back in February of 2024. So I had no idea, like this was all so new to me. But it was cool. He was super open to me, and that was great. Later on in that year, as I was learning more through these different groups, I realized what an awesome opportunity it would be to manage not only single family short-term rentals, but to basically 10x my growth by doing something that's 10 times bigger, which is a boutique hotel or a tiny home resort, and managing that for somebody. And I realized that everyone's talking about co-hosting and managing short-term rentals, but almost nobody's talking about managing hotels or tiny home resorts or things like that. I still have heard of hardly anyone who is doing that. But at the same time, everybody's talking about buying boutique hotels and running boutique hotels. I realize there's just not really anyone they could go to manage those. And the type of people who are buying them aren't the type of people who want to do the management for those properties. So I got that in my head. It was kind of like a seed planted in my head. And then I had an opportunity to do a tiny home masterclass, which was like another $1,500. And I was like, I would love to have one of these one day, and I want to manage these for people. So I quickly like dropped another $1,500 and went through an eight-week course on how to build and develop out a tiny home resort. And now all of a sudden I knew this language of how to speak and how to like manage these types of properties. And I had a chance to meet with that group, that investor again, who had the boutique hotel. And suddenly that conversation was totally different. And so to answer your original question, I have now 3 properties that I co-host for, and I do marketing for someone who has 4 properties, luxury properties around the country. So I manage his marketing for his direct marketing business. And then I have a 14-unit, it's like I call it I don't know what to call it, because it's got a 9-unit hotel on the property, but it also has a house on the property, a 3-bedroom house, and it has 4 cottages. So it's kind of perfect because it's this mix of tiny home resort and boutique hotel. And now I'm able to learn the business model of both of those things, which is super exciting for me.
Yeah, and from what I understand, that was being managed by one of the larger property managers before that. Obviously, wasn't able to give it the personal attention that you're going to be able to give it. So I have no doubt in my mind that 2025 is going to be a rocking year for that space, and I can't wait to see it explode. So one of the things that I think that makes you very successful, and really everybody in our mastermind is everybody owns their own property. Everybody owns a short term rental first, right?
Yeah.
Because when you do that, you have a vested interest into other properties you're co-hosting because you're already doing it and you know what that owner's going through because you've been there and you've done that. Obviously, you're growing your co-hosting business, but what are the plans to grow your personal short-term rental portfolio as well on owning?
Yeah, honestly, I just got super hyper focused in 2024 on that goal of uh, earning enough income to replace my W-2 that I
Yep.
made a conscious decision not to grow my own portfolio, but to grow the co-hosting business instead. So now it's exciting as I look at 2025. I've kind of got that door opened up again in my mind to be able to do that now that I'll be leaving my W-2 job. And so, yeah, I have goals of purchasing another property in my own portfolio, and then broader goals of at the end of next year to start looking for land and property to start building a tiny home resort on as well. So,
I've seen so many investors jump into that space because, the bottom line is the short-term market in many areas is, I hate to use the word saturated, but for your average home, it's saturated, right? So if you can get into something
yeah.
unique, you can get into something that's a little different in your area. That's how you're going to continue to be successful, and it's ever changing. And I'm sure you're seeing that on the Northwest coast as well.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is with a boutique hotel or a tiny home resort, saturation uh, matters obviously, and like how many other properties there are in the area matter. But you're able to build or buy in places that are, I want to say, slightly off the beaten path of what a like traditional vacation market might be, or in that area. But because of the way that you develop your property, you can market in a way that actually drives people to that property. And I think that's more true for a tiny home resort. Like you can build something truly unique, and then people will go there for that location, and it fills the need of that location. Or for a boutique hotel, it's almost more of you're just creating such a like a unique and um, better hotel experience than people traditionally would book on, say, Expedia or Booking.com. And so when they come across your property, um, you're able to stand out in a kind of old school market.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, watching your growth has been awesome. You are mastermind member number 3 to be able to say goodbye to the W-2, and I am excited for you to be able to do that soon. There's nothing that really excites me more than to see other people succeed. I truly, truly love seeing all of you guys in this group grow these businesses. It's been so much fun. And what's really cool is when you started your business, and this is something that you did that nobody else did, is you started getting help right from the get-go. So, you had your first virtual assistant before you even really had any co-host properties, and I just got my first virtual assistant recently, a couple months ago, thanks to you in Austin. But what was that like, and how is that mindset different to start with that from day one?
I love this. I recommend this to anyone who is building it as a business, who doesn't want this to just be like a single property or something that they do on the side. But if you're looking at this and you're saying, I want to have 10, 15, 20 properties in the next couple of years, I recommend getting help today, like immediately. Bring someone on. So it was a game changer for the reason why I wanted to do it was I read the book Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, and I've read that book probably 5 times in the last year because it just really resonated with me. And then every time I found myself doing what he would call a $10 task, something that really anyone could do, that's like just not giving me energy, but it's like necessary to do. I always just thought like, I wish I had someone like I should have someone that could do this for me so that I can spend my time doing the most important things that my business is I'm the only one that can do those types of things. And so I got online and hired a VA from the Philippines, and even just hired her part-time. Honestly, it was like $250 for 20 hours a week for this person. And I learned so much from having her. So first of all, I've had now like 8 months of learning how to manage someone, learning how to delegate tasks, learning how to deal with someone who lives across the world and how to like figure out all that stuff, which puts me in the position now where I can scale that and I can bring on more people. But the biggest game changer, which no one ever talks about, that I found was having someone that was just there, that was just, a quick meeting or message away, opened my capacity up to think of things that I wouldn't have thought of before. So yeah, you think of like, you can give them this task and this task and this task that you're doing that's busy, but all of a sudden you realize here's a task that I personally wouldn't have done because I don't have the time to do it. But now I've got an extra 20 or 40 hours a week in my life, and someone that I can just give them this task and it will be done. And so all of a sudden I find myself having ideas and thinking of these things that will help my business to grow and succeed. And I can just send a quick message to my VA and then that thing happens and I don't have to spend any more time on it. But this idea, which I wouldn't have had before, is now like helping my business to grow. And I love that. Like that's been really impactful to me.
Yeah, and it has been for me as well. And I, I should have hired my virtual assistant many months before I did, maybe even a year before I did. I drug my feet for a long time, but I agree. Like, I didn't, I tried to grow my Facebook page for my business, for my co-hosting business, and it did okay. But then I got a virtual assistant that started posting weekly or posting multiple times a week and inviting people to the page and putting together really cool content, and then from there, her designing abilities got better, and now she's creating, cool graphics for my actual listings on Airbnb and VRBO, and doing different things like that. And those are just some of the many, many tasks that I've been able to take off my plate that I just didn't have time to do any of that stuff. And, and like you said, you have to treat this like a business, right? And in a business, any business, you can't do it on your own. And I don't care what business it is, there are very, very few out there that you can be the only person in your business. And if you're doing that, then you don't actually own a business. You're just working, working another job. And so having that, and I've learned so much from you, part of getting that virtual assistant, and I definitely appreciate it. And the tidbits that you do come into our calls on, I think everybody values the knowledge that they get from you because you do things very different than some of the rest of us, and that's okay. There's so many different ways to be successful in this business, but what has been, some of the biggest takeaways from the mastermind group for you over the past year and a half, since we started that have you think have helped you into this business?
Oh, hands down, just being surrounded by people who are like-minded to you is one of the best things. So in my like normal like sphere of influence and people around me, even within my immediate family, like even my brother who owns short-term rentals, like he owns it, but he's not like excited about all the little things and ways of growing and things like that. So just having people who, when you can sit in a physical or virtual room with them and just like learn from them and get their energy is the best thing, because that just keeps me excited. It plants new ideas in my mind and keeps me like just energized about the business. So that's the best thing. And then having people that you can call up who are specialists or just really skilled in one thing and not the other is awesome. So I've got more of like an operations and marketing brain. Like I'm very systems and processes oriented. But traditionally, I have not been like a salesperson. I've been terrified to pick up the phone. I have had no idea how to contact clients and things like that. And so I've had to lean on other people in the group like you and Austin and Zach. I've had calls with all of you about like, okay, walk me through, how do I make a phone call again? Like, what do I say? And just been like terrified to do those things. But then I talk to you all and I'm given confidence and even literally the words to say to be able to call and reach out to potential clients. And So that's invaluable, that type of
Yeah.
direct access to people who have the skills that you don't have.
Yep, I tell this to everyone that I meet in this space, get yourself a network. And it does, sometimes you got to pay for it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you can find a group like ours that we can come together and not have to spend, thousands of dollars. But, I listened to a podcast a couple months ago by a guy named Mike Kitco, and he's, one of my favorite podcasters, and he talked about how, if you want to be successful, you have to buy your friends, right? And that doesn't mean you have to go buy your friends and pay them money to come to dinner with you, but to be in a space with other successful people, you have to be able to spend a little bit of money to be able to do that. And because that makes everybody have a vested interest to help each other when you're actually taking a little bit of money out of your wallet to do that. Obviously, you've done great success on many different programs that you have been involved in. And I think that's probably the takeaway from this call for people listening is go out and get that help. Whether it be just somebody that you met on a Facebook group that's already doing this, or joining one of these other programs. There's so many different ways to be successful. So if you had to do it all
In
over,
there.
a year and a half ago, before we got together, would you have done anything differently as far as the money that you spent and the programs that you jumped into?
No, that's crazy to say, but honestly, no. I would spend that like $25,000 that I spent over the last 18 months. I would do it again, and I probably will do it again in the next year, as I continue to put myself in the rooms with people who are 2 or 3 or 4 years ahead of where I am,
Yep.
because they inspire me and they show me this pathway that I can go on, and they also just give me hope because I can look at someone who's 2 years ahead of me. I just had lunch with someone yesterday who's 2 years ahead of me, and it's like, cool, I can be where he is in 2 years. And it's like, just makes it so real. Uh, and even though like the path to get there, like I have no idea how to do that. And that doesn't matter. Like that's actually okay that you don't know how to do it. One, because you can ask these people, how do you do it? And they'll tell you, if you ask, they'll tell you. But I would do it again. And my advice to myself 2 years ago and to anyone who's listening, who doesn't have a clear goal, like clear enough that they could write it. Like literally, this is a sticky note, and I wrote this 2 weeks ago, my 2025 goal, because I feel like I hit my 2024 goal. So I was like, okay, what's next? I spent a whole day just like really thinking about what does 12, 18, 3 months, 3 years from now look like for me. And so, yeah, I was able to write down two goals. One is like my end of 2025, like I've got here 25K net income per month in 2025. Be able to spend and give however and to whoever I want. And ever since writing this, I've read that 100 times now. And like my brain is just like crystal clear on this is what's next for me
Yep.
financially. And then more importantly is in the next 3 months, I want to have a team managing guest communications so I can focus and I can disconnect when needed. And just like having these two super clear goals in my head is helping me make subconscious decisions about what I need to do to get to those goals. And so if anyone isn't clear enough that they could write down their goal on a sticky note and fold it up and stick it in their paper today, like just the next thing you should do is take tomorrow off, take 5 hours and just like block them off tomorrow and say, what is my one goal? Like, what's my next big thing I want to go after? Write it on a sticky note and put it in your pocket, and that will change your life.
I can't agree more. And the most successful people that I've met, even today, the millionaires, the billionaires, they still have those goals. Grant Cardone is one of my favorite authors, favorite people to listen to, and he, obviously his 10x plan and Sell or Be Sold. I mean, so many great things that he's done, and he talks about that, writing that goal down. Damon St. John on Shark Tank, he talks about writing those goals down and reading them every single day you wake up and doing that. So if the most successful people in the world are doing it, then why wouldn't we do it? And the thing that I love the most about this business is the sky truly is the limit. Like there are so many businesses, and my wife and I have owned multiple businesses, and there's usually a cap. In many of these businesses, there's a cap. Like this is the most you can do, but you're proving it with the right help, the right assistance that you can bring on to do it. The sky's the limit, and whether it be 14 properties or 140 properties or 1,400, whatever it may be that your goals are, there's really no stopping you in this business because there's such a need. There are so many really awful property managers out there, and when you are an expert in this space, you can bring them something that nobody does. And I think everyone in that Northwest coast that can bring you on board is definitely going to be really happy after they do. So, if I were somebody looking for a co-host in the Northwest and I wanted to get a hold of you and your company, how would I be able to do that?
I would just go to my website, Together Vacation Rentals, spelled to get here. So togethervacationrentals.com, and I've got all the information about my business there. I've got a quick link to schedule a 15-minute introduction call, as well as the ability to get a free property analysis there. So that's probably the best way, or just reach out to Joe and he'll connect us. Joe's
Yeah.
awesome at that.
Yep, I can definitely do that. I mean, seriously, if you were in the Washington area, Michael is definitely the guy to call. And I really appreciate you coming on and doing this with me today. Love learning more about your business. Love seeing what you were doing, and thank you so much.
No, thank you, Joe. I really appreciate everything you do for our community and that you've done for our group of friends, our little mastermind that we started a year ago. It's transformed several lives already, including mine. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Looking forward to being able to get together in person at the next wealth conference, whatever it may be. But hopefully
Let's do
that'll
it.
happen sometime really soon. So that's it for this week's episode of the Co-host Coach. Everyone, thank you so much, and we will see you next week.